Choosing a Life by ginnyrules27, Chapter 11. Clara, Hallie, come on you two, we're going to be late. Don't want you to miss out on time with Grandma and Grandpa, Claudine called as she looked up the staircase that led to the bedrooms of their lighthouse. While technically it was Eric and Ariel's lighthouse, Claudine and Henry ran it for them. It had been part of the deal they had created when they were getting their wedding underway. Neither Henry nor Claudine had felt comfortable using the beach for free, while neither Eric nor Ariel felt comfortable charging them for its use. Working the lighthouse had been a compromise that suited everyone, even if Eric and Ariel insisted on paying them for work. "Coming, Mama!" Clara called as she and Hallie slowly made their way down the stairs.
"All right, you two. You got everything?" Henry asked as he walked in. "Boots, hats, swords."
"Yes, Papa." "Henry, they won't need swords at Aurora and Philip's," Claudine said, shaking her head in amusement.
Henry raised an eyebrow. "Oh, really? And what if Harry and Paige want to spar? You told me that Phil's going to be there with his kids, and I'm pretty sure Percy and Maddie aren't at sparring ages yet."
"Knowing you'll be training the infants on their footwork sooner or later," Claudine chuckled.
"No, I usually like to hold off until the person learning to spar can walk. With the exception of Ryan, but that's practically because I raised him since he was 3.
Henry said, a fond smile gracing his lips. Claudine couldn't help but smile as well, as she thought back on those times on the Isle, though it was a slightly sad smile. Those times when no one thought escape from the Isle was possible. Those times when Freddie was still plaguing their every movement. Those times where their girls weren't even a possibility. "No!" Claudine told herself as they made their way out to the car, Hallie bouncing slightly in Henry's arms as Clara ran ahead to be the line leader, whatever that means. "Don't think about that. Not when you're with the girls." While the girls knew the fact that their parents had grown up on the Isle of the Lost, if only because Henry always took the time to tell them to take pride in the fact that their queen was like them, a girl from the Isle. The girls didn't know about Freddie. How could they tell them? Clara was only 3 and Hallie was a year younger than her sister. How could they possibly explain the wickedness that was Freddie to their innocent daughters? Henry reached over and gently grabbed her hand, giving it a small squeeze. It was as if he could sense what she was thinking.
"I get it," he seemed to say, "but we've got time. Ari and Paige haven't even started asking about Freddie yet."
If Freddie's own daughters weren't asking about him, it was safe to say that their girls wouldn't be asking about Freddie for a long time. Claudine gave Henry a small smile and started up the car. The trip to Honeymoon Castle was uneventful, if one ignored the repetitive loop of children's music on the CD player for the entire trip. Honestly, it almost made one yearn for the Isle where such things didn't exist.
"I swear, whoever came up with that song should partner with Lord Hades to torment people in Tartarus,"
Henry muttered as they got out of the car, having arrived at Honeymoon Castle. "I know, dear, but the girls love it." Claudine sighed as Clara ran up ahead, excited to see Aurora and Philip, or as she called them, Gram and Grampy. Aurora and Philip loved seeing the girls, and always offered to watch them if Claudine and Henry needed a break.
"But it's going to be in my head all day."
"So think about something else." Henry chuckled and shook his head. The issue was the fact with that song they'd be listening to it on the way back. "Auntie Claudine! Uncle Henry!" "Hello, Paige." Claudine smiled as her niece ran up to greet them. "Is that a new dress?" Paige nodded, swishing the skirt of her dress. Evie had once again worked her magic and made Paige a blue and grey dress that somehow looked as if the fabric had been swirled together. "Uh-huh, it has pockets." "Lucky," Hallie said from Henry's arms, locks of her red hair falling into her face. She had inherited her father's hair, while Clara had inherited her mother's hair, though in a certain light, Clara's hair looked like it had red highlights in it.
"Hallie, love, your pants have pockets too,"
Henry said with a small chuckle as he brushed her hair out of her eyes. But my dresses don't. Claudine shook her head. Well, we can talk to Evie and see about getting you a dress with pockets. Doesn't that sound good? Okay, Mama, Hallie said with a grin as Clara came running out to join them. Gran said there are snacks, but we can't have any until everyone's inside.
Henry chuckled and smiled at his daughter. Is that your way of saying hurry up, sweetheart?
Yes, Papa. Well, then we better do just that, Claudine said as the 5 of them made their way into Honeymoon Castle.
Claudine! Henry! Aurora said with a grin as she saw them. Oh, it's so nice to see you.
It's wonderful to see you too, Aurora, Claudine said with a smile. It's been too long.
Whose fault is that? Phil asked with a chuckle as Maddie and Percy cooed in his arms.
No Melody today?
Claudine asked as she walked over to take one of the twins from him. Phil shook his head. Nah, she's having a cousin stay with Herky and Hattie. She was going to have the twins, but we switched so that they can be here today instead.
Mama? Clara asked. Why do Maddie and Percy's Mama and Papa not live together like you and Papa?
Claudine's face flushed as she shot an apologetic look at Phil.
Clara, honey, remember when we talked about questions that are okay to ask around other people and questions that are at-home questions? Uh-huh.
Well, that's an at-home question, sweetheart.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mama.
I'm not the one you should say sorry to, sweet girl, Claudine said, and Clara looked at Phil.
I'm sorry, Uncle Phil.
Phil chuckled softly. It's okay, Clara. You were curious, and curiosity is never a bad thing. Just remember, there's a time and a place for curiosity, okay?
Okay, Clara nodded. Uncle Phil, can we spar?
I'd love to, but I'm holding Percy right now. Maybe Ari or Paige would like to spar with you?
Where is Paige?
Claudine asked, looking around,
as Philip walked in with the refreshments. She's normally one of the first to greet us. Is she feeling okay?
Aurora sighed. I'm not sure. We went to the park this morning, and she was her usual happy self. But when we left, she seemed a bit downtrodden. She won't tell me what's wrong, though.
She's in her library, Paige spoke up.
Claudine nodded as Philip walked over and took Maddie from her arms.
Well, I think I'll go see her. I'll be back down soon.
Take your time, Henry said as he handed Hallie to Aurora, the blonde eager to see her grandchild, and the redhead just as eager to see her grandmother. Claudine smiled softly and walked out of the room, making her way up the stairs to Arabella's room. She knew what Paige had meant by Ari being in her library. It was a toy playhouse that Ben had given her for her first birthday, or rather a replica of it. When it became clear that she was getting too big to move around in it without knocking down the books that were in there, Philip commissioned a new library for Ari, big enough so that she could grow into it.
Knock, knock,
Claudine said, knocking on one of the green shutters that were the windows.
I'm here to check out a niece.
Hi, Auntie, Ari said softly, her arms wrapped around her legs, as it almost looked like she was trying to make herself into a ball.
What's got my sweet girl down in the dumps?
Claudine asked, wishing the mini library was bigger so that she could go in and wrap her arms around Ari. Whatever was bothering the girl had to be big, since she was normally full of light and laughter. Right now, it was like one of the clouds from the Isle had come over and cast a shadow over her niece.
Why don't I have a mama?
What?
There was this girl at the park,
Ari said, her soft voice sounding like she was trying to hold back tears.
And I wanted to play with her, but she said she doesn't play with kids without mamas, because they're evil, and that my mama was evil, and tried to hurt King Ben and Queen Mel, according to her mama. And so King Ben and Queen Mel had to get rid of her.
Claudine sighed.
Oh, sweetie. Is it true? Is that why I don't have a mama? Ari asked, looking over at Claudine through the window of the makeshift library. Is that why Paige doesn't have a mama? Did the girl say anything to Paige? Ari shook her head. Paige was on the swings with Grandma. They didn't hear anything, she told Claudine. Well, that was good at least. Claudine thought, not that Ari had to hear those words, of course, but that Paige wasn't hurt by them either. Well, I have to say this. That girl's mother is wrong about one thing, Claudine said. What's that? That kids without mamas are evil. I don't have a mama, and neither does your Uncle Henry. And we're not evil, right? But you're not kids. We were kids once, Claudine said gently. And yes, now I have a mum because of your grandma. But I grew up without a mum. So did your Uncle Henry. Ari wiped tear tracks from her cheeks. I love Grandma, but I want a mama too. Does that make me bad? Not at all, sweetheart, Claudine said gently. Wanting to have a mum like other kids do does not make you bad at all. But can I tell you something? What? If you ever feel like you need a mum, you've got 3 substitutes ready and willing to be there for you. Just like you've got 3 substitutes if you ever feel you need a dad. After all, Melody was practically another aunt to Ari and Paige already. A lack of a marriage to Phil didn't seem to matter to the girls. Ari gave Claudine a small smile and slowly made her way out of the makeshift library to Claudine's waiting arms. Won't Clara and Allie be jealous? Ari whispered. I'd be taking their mama from them. You would be doing no such thing, Claudine promised. If you ever need a mum and you don't think you can talk to your grandma about what's bothering you, you can always come to me. Okay? Okay, Auntie. Ari said softly, and Claudine held her close. Should I be thankful the girl didn't say anything about Freddie? Claudine thought, as the 2 of them sat on the floor. After all, Ari seemed more preoccupied with the fact that she doesn't have a mum, rather than the fact that she doesn't have a dad. Though that question's probably going to come up at some point. Are Clara and Hallie here too? Ari asked after a few minutes. They are, Claudine nodded. Your Uncle Henry's probably got them sparring already, if you want to go join them. Ari nodded softly, and Claudine smiled as they got up. Ari going to grab her trusty wooden sword and a tri-cornered hat, before they made their way down the stairs. There they saw Henry give a quick lesson to Paige, Clara and Hallie, while Aurora, Philip and Phil looked on in amusement.
Okay, you 3. What's the first rule of sword work?
Henry asked. Oh, I know, Papa, Clara said, holding her hand up as high as it would go. I know.
Okay, Clara. What is it?
Stick 'em with the pointy end.
You've been around Auntie Captain a bit too much, haven't you?
Henry asked with a small chuckle, and Claudine couldn't help but smile, as she had the title Clara had given Mal during one of the many times she had gone over to the castle for Mal and Ben to babysit her for Henry and Claudine. It was a title that Mal seemed to wear with pride. Know your surroundings, Ari said, her voice soft as she went to join them. Know if you can trap your enemy or pin them against a wall. Henry nodded, giving Ari a bright smile. Though it was a teensy bit unfair, Henry had been telling her the rules of sword work since Ari could remember.
That's it. You want to tell them the second rule of sword work, Ari?
Have your sword out before you approach, Ari said, her face brightening up with the answer. Claudine went over and sat next to Aurora.
Did you get her to tell you what's wrong? Phil asked.
Claudine leaned over to take Percy from his arms. Yeah, Claudine said with a small sigh. Apparently a girl at the park gave Harry a hard time for not having a mum.
What?
Aurora gasped softly, trying to make it so she didn't attract the attention of the kids.
I didn't even know that happened.
Apparently it was when you were on the swings with Paige, Claudine told her. I'm guessing it was just before you left the park.
Aurora sighed. I knew we'd have to talk to both of the girls about Audrey at some point, but I didn't think it would be this soon. We take them to visit Audrey's grave, but there just hasn't been a right time to tell them who she was to them. They're only kids after all, Philip whispered, before shaking his head, clearing his throat.
Thinking about Audrey was... well, it still hurt, even after the years had passed. I told Harry that if she ever needs a mum, she can come to call me, Claudine said, her voice soft as she looked over at the girls. All of them seemed so eager and innocent, whereas she had been so timid and meek at their age. It had taken Freddie teaching her how to throw daggers to finally get her out of her shell.
Thank you, Claudine,
Aurora said, and Claudine looked back at her to see a sad smile on Aurora's face. Hey, you two welcomed me into your family when you could have easily said you didn't want anything more to do with the Frollos, Claudine said as she took Aurora's hand, as best she could with her arms filled with the baby.
Except we weren't having anything to do with the Frollo, Philip spoke up. You were a rose. By choice, and later by us.
Claudine smiled at the words Aurora had used at their wedding. The words she sometimes would tell herself when she'd be reminded that she was genetically connected with Freddie. She wasn't a Frollo. She was a rose. And a Kersey. Oh, Papa, I know! Clara's voice pulled Claudine out of her thoughts, and she chuckled at the fact that her husband was still holding sword school, as he liked to call it.
Okay, Clara. Henry nodded. Go ahead. What's the most important thing to do with your empty hand?
Keep it out of the way, or you end up like a codfish. Henry, are you calling Captain Hook a codfish around our girls? Claudine called. Henry chuckled, looking more than slightly guilty.
Hey, the man didn't show up to Harriet's wedding. I am within my rights to insult him. Doesn't matter if he's practically pirate royalty.
That's hardly becoming behaviour for a prince, you know, insulting people behind their backs.
Ah, but it is becoming behaviour for a pirate.
Everyone in the room chuckled as they heard that, and Claudine smiled at her husband. He somehow had an innate gift at lifting the spirits of everyone in the room. Besides, they never used their royal titles, even after Claudine had been adopted by Aurora and Philip, and Henry married into the family. They preferred to use their pirate titles of Captain and Captainess. The girls would have all the benefits of being royal, of course. They wouldn't deny their daughters a good life. But they would also know their roots. You know, I'm hearing a lot of talk and not a lot of sword talk, she teased. You wouldn't be losing your touch, Mr. Kersey, now would you?
Ba. You're forgetting one of the most important rules of swordwork, Captain Kersey.
Henry teased back. And what might that be?
Make sure there's nothing that you might trip on, Henry said, gesturing to the coffee table, end table, and the feet of the other adults. Not really a lot of room here for actual sparring. We can always move outside, Aurora offered. I only set up in here so Phil would be able to sit down while holding the twins.
Can we go outside? Paige and Clara asked at the same time. Claudine chuckled. I don't know. What's the magic word? Please, Mama. Please, Auntie. Thank you, girls. If it's okay with your grandmother, it's okay with me, Claudine said, and smiled as all four girls looked over at Aurora with big, pleading eyes. Soon the Rose and Kersey family found themselves sitting on the back patio, while the girls quickly began sparring each other with their wooden swords. Did you ever think we would ever have this life? Claudine asked as she rested her head on Henry's shoulder.
Truthfully, no, Henry said, but I'm glad life seemed to defy my expectations.
I am too, Claudine said, smiling as she heard the squeals of her daughters and their nieces. It was truly the best sound in the world. Thank you, Fred, she thought. As weird as it is to think, if you hadn't been a threat to me, Mal would never have brought me over from the Isle. I would never have become a member of Aurora and Philip's family. Would never have been adopted by them. Would never have been given the gift from the good fairies. And I likely wouldn't have had my daughters. So, in a way, I owe this all to you.
What are you thinking about?
Henry asked, noticing the soft smile on his wife's lips. How lucky we are, Claudine said. Hey, there was no reason to ruin the moment by saying she was thinking about Freddie. Henry smiled and held her close.
We really are. Lucky, that is,
he said softly before kissing the top of her head. Claudine smiled at the sound of wooden swords clashing, and girlish squeals graced her ears. As hard as it was to believe sometimes that this was her life, she wouldn't trade it for anything. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh my god, that's freaking gorgeous. But oh, poor Ari having to face the fact about Audrey so young. Jeez, poor girl. But I also like how they're just being a family. Phil's there with Matt, with the little twins. I still love that there is a Percy Jackson happy accident reference there. And also, I love the reference to Game of Thrones. Stick 'em with the pointy end. Got a young Arya Stark right there. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye bye guys, pals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Sorry I'm yawning. It's been a long night. Bye.